In a secluded valley far from the noise of modern life, hidden behind a dense curtain of towering forests, lay a quiet village known as Karang Wulam. It was a place untouched by time, where whispers traveled further than news, and every rustling leaf carried a trace of old beliefs. On the edge of this village ran a dark, winding river. The locals called it Sungay Hitam, the Black River. Its waters shimmered strangely under the moonlight, and the elders believed it held ancient powers. It was said that spirits dwelled within, watching silently, sometimes bestowing blessings, and sometimes taking what they wished in return. But no such blessings had ever reached the small wooden home of Pak Dharma and his wife, Budi. Years of marriage had passed. Countless prayers, herbs from village shamans, rituals handed down through generations, yet their home remained silent. No lullabies, no soft cries in the night, just aching emptiness. Every time a neighbor gave birth, Budi would smile politely. Then she'd close the door and weep quietly, her hands resting on her empty womb. Pak Dharma, though always steady in appearance, had long stopped hoping aloud. But his eyes revealed the weight of quiet desperation. In Karang Wulam, tradition ruled stronger than law. The villagers still offered flowers to trees, coins to rocks, and prayers to the river. Especially the river. Pak Dharma and Budi began visiting Sungay Hitam under the cover of darkness. They brought offerings, petals of hibiscus, bowls of fruit, incense wrapped in banana leaves. They knelt by the riverbank, whispering to the unseen. "Give us a child," Budi would murmur, tears falling into the black water. "Please, even once." It was said the spirits of the river could hear such pleas, but never without cost. One night, under the glow of a perfect full moon, as the silver light danced across the river's surface, something changed. The air grew still. The night animals fell silent. And as Budi closed her eyes in prayer, a strange whisper brushed her ear, soft, unintelligible, but undeniably real. It was gone. She opened her eyes. The river looked the same. Still, silent. But something had shifted. 3 weeks later, Budi fell ill. Not with fever, not with pain, but with fatigue, cravings, and restlessness. The village midwife examined her, eyes wide. "You are with child," she whispered. Pak Dharma dropped to his knees. Their prayers had been answered, and in time, not one, but 2 daughters were born, Samala and Kamala. The village celebrated. The air filled with laughter, music, and stories of miracles. People whispered that the children were blessings from the Black River. But not everyone smiled. Some elders watched silently, their faces tight with concern. They remembered stories, buried in dust and fear, of those who asked too much from the river and paid dearly. But their warnings were met with dismissive joy. After all, the babies were healthy. Budi's pregnancy had been smooth, even if she had dreamt often of the river, of water whispering her name, of voices rising with the current. She had woken many nights with her heart pounding, but dismissed it as pregnancy anxiety. The village focused on welcoming new life. But the river remembered. As the twins grew, strange things began to stir. It started with the air, cooler than usual, especially near the riverbank. Even on sunny days, a chilling breeze would roll through Karang Wulam, sending shivers down the spines of its people. At night, villagers heard the sound of trickling water, louder than it should be, echoing as if flowing inside their walls. Dogs barked at nothing. Candles flickered without wind. And sometimes, they'd find wet footprints near their doors. No one dared speak of it. Fear, like fog, crept in silence. Then came the night that would change everything. The moon hung low, heavy with light. The Black River shimmered like oil, its surface too smooth to be natural. Inside their home, Budi was mid-labor. Her cries echoed through the wooden walls as the midwife whispered prayers. The light of a single oil lamp danced wildly with each contraction. Outside, the wind picked up, howling from the direction of the river. Windows rattled. Trees groaned. And suddenly, silence. Not peace, not calm, just a heavy, dreadful silence. Then came the birth cries. Twin voices piercing through the void. Samala and Kamala had arrived. But as the midwife wiped their tiny bodies and handed them to Booty, she paused. Something in her hands felt too cold. The babies didn't cry like others. They stared, wide eyes, dark and unblinking, as if they were seeing something no one else could. As if they knew. The candle flickered once, then went out. Darkness swallowed the room. Booty held her daughters close, whispering thanks. She didn't see the way the shadows behind her shifted, or the way the cold air circled their home like an invisible fog. That night, every candle in the village flickered. The black river churned slightly, as if sighing in satisfaction. And from the trees, a crow screeched once, then fell silent. The village of Karang Wulang would never be the same. Samala and Kamala grew quickly. Too quickly. By their second birthday, they spoke in full sentences. Their hair flowed like ink, their skin pale like the moon. They were beautiful, too beautiful. People began to whisper. Sometimes they saw the girls by the river, alone, just watching the water. Sometimes they talked to it, not playfully but reverently, intimately, like old friends. And then the disappearances began. A young farmer vanished near the forest. A fisherman never returned from checking his traps. And every time someone vanished, villagers claimed they saw the girls standing by the river that night, hands held, eyes shining under the moonlight. Pak Dharma and Booty began to worry. But it was too late. The village elders gathered, their eyes grave. "This is a consequence," one of them whispered. "You asked the river for a gift. Gave. But now, it's time to pay." Karang Wulang village had changed. No longer filled with the chatter of morning greetings or the sound of children laughing, the air had grown tense, thick with unspoken fear. People walked quickly past each other, eyes downcast, avoiding the Black River at all costs. And in the center of this growing anxiety stood two little girls. Samala and Kamala, now nearing the age of 10, had become the subject of whispers and nervous glances. Their beauty had grown otherworldly, hair darker than night, skin pale like river mist, and eyes that seemed to look through people, not at them. Some villagers swore they had seen shadows following the girls, larger than their small frames, almost like creatures made of smoke. Others said the girls were seen standing at the river at dawn, their feet submerged, unmoving for hours. But most disturbing of all were the disappearances. First a hunter, then a merchant, then a visiting relative, 3 souls gone without a trace. And each time, someone claimed to have seen the twins near the river just before it happened. Pak Dharma and Booty, once overjoyed parents, were now sleepless and afraid. Booty noticed strange things at home. The girls would speak in low voices to empty corners. They never cried, never laughed. Their playtime was silent. Sometimes she caught them humming, melodies she didn't recognize, cold and ancient. One night, as the moon climbed high, Booty found the girls standing by the window, gazing at the river in silence. Their eyes didn't blink. Their mouths barely moved, but she could hear faint whispers, like they were chanting. That was the night Booty broke down. Tears streaming down her face, she rushed to the home of Mba Sari, the oldest woman in the village, a respected spiritual figure and the last person to know the village's ancient secrets. "I beg you," Booty cried, kneeling on her floor. "There's something wrong with my daughters." Mba Sari said nothing. She simply nodded. That very night, under the full moon, Mba Sari gathered Pak Dharma, Booty, and the twins in the center of their home. The room was dimly lit, the scent of burning herbs rising from the corners. She sat cross-legged before a small fire, whispering in a language no one else understood. As the flames flickered, the wind outside rose. Suddenly, the fire danced violently. A sharp, unnatural gust blew into the room. And from within the shadows, a voice, soft but echoing, seemed to whisper, "The blood has returned." Basari opened her eyes, her face pale. "There is something you must know," she said, voice trembling. "Your daughters are not just children. They are the result of an ancient pact, one made long before you were born." Pac Dharma stared, shocked. What pact?" Basari pulled out a worn scroll from a wrapped bundle beside her and laid it on the floor. The old script detailed a horrifying agreement made generations ago. A man named Kajuro, one of the village's ancestors, had once come to the Black River begging for wealth and children. The spirit of the river agreed, but in return, demanded a promise. Every few generations, a child born into Kajuro's bloodline must be returned to the river. Not raised, not kept, returned. That child would serve the spirit, become part of it. If the agreement was broken, the spirit would take others. The river would never stay hungry. But this was forgotten, Basari said, buried under time, until someone desperate, made offerings again. You reawakened the pact. Booty's hands flew to her mouth. No, we didn't know. You asked, Basari said gently, and the river gave. But the price never changed. Samala and Kamala sat still, unmoved. It was as if they already knew. Pac Dharma stood, voice cracking. There must be a way to break this. We cannot lose them. There may be, Basari whispered, but not through me. You must seek Ki Renga, a shaman from the hills beyond the eastern forest. He knows the ways of the river spirits. He may be your only hope. The next morning, without waiting another moment, Pac Dharma and Booty left the village in search of Ki Renga. Their journey took them through mist-covered paths, past steep cliffs, and into forests so thick the sunlight barely touched the ground. They walked for hours, carrying only fear and desperation. Finally, they arrived at a hidden village, silent and cold. A small hut with symbols carved into its door stood at the end of a narrow path. Inside sat Ki Renga. He was old, older than anyone they'd seen. His face was lined with age, his eyes sharp with knowledge that felt older than time itself. We have twin daughters, Pac Dharma began, born after we prayed at the Black River. And now, something is wrong. People have disappeared. The girls, they're changing. Ki Renga nodded slowly. The river spirits don't give freely, he said. They give with one hand and take with the other. But if you act fast, you may still save them. But how? Booty asked, trembling. There is a ritual, Ki Renga said. It must be done on the night of the next full moon. But be warned, it is dangerous. If even a single step is done wrong, the spirit will take what it believes is owed and more. He looked at them both gravely. Do not let emotion break the circle. Do not speak during the binding. Do not approach the children until it is done. Pac Dharma and Booty exchanged a fearful glance, then nodded. They returned to Karang Wulong immediately, inviting Ki Renga to join them. The villagers, already paralyzed with fear from the ongoing disappearances, agreed to help prepare the ritual. No one wanted more lives lost. On the night of the ritual, the village fell into a deep, eerie silence. The winds were still. The trees didn't sway. And the river, black and wide, gleamed under the silver moon like an open mouth. Samala and Kamala stood at the edge of the circle, eyes fixed on the water. Ki Renga began the chants, his voice deep and rhythmic. The smoke of the sacred herbs swirled unnaturally. The earth seemed to breathe beneath them. Then the wind howled. The ground trembled. And the river, I screamed. Something was coming. The moon hung high, casting an eerie silver glow across Karang Wulong village. Every door was shut, every window covered, yet no one inside could sleep. All eyes were on the Black River, where the final ritual had begun. Ki Renga stood inside the sacred circle drawn on the soil, surrounded by symbols older than memory. Flames from torches flickered violently, as if trying to resist the dark energy that had begun to stir. In the center stood Samala and Kamala, their eyes vacant, their bodies still as stone. Pak Dharma and Booty stood close, hearts pounding, but unable to cross the chalk line of the ritual. Ki Renga's warning echoed in their minds. If you break the circle, you lose them forever. The river's surface was no longer still. It churned violently, as though something beneath it had awakened, something ancient and enraged. Begin the binding now. Ki Renga shouted over the wind, his voice shaking with urgency. He threw a powder into the fire, and blue smoke spiraled into the night sky. His chants grew louder, echoing unnaturally, as if being repeated by unseen voices in the trees. Suddenly, the twins blinked in unison. A loud crack split the silence. Thunder rolled across the sky without lightning. The ground trembled. Then, the girls began to walk toward the river. "No!" Booty screamed, but Ki Renga threw out his hand. "Don't move," he cried. "We're not done." But the circle began to waver. The torches dimmed. Something was pushing back. "Something's wrong." Ki Renga shouted, sweat pouring down his face. "The spirit, it's resisting." The river roared now, a deep, guttural sound, like a beast awoken. And from within the swirling mist above the water, shadows emerged. Vague, tall forms, shifting and curling like smoke. Watching. Judging. The wind howled louder. The earth cracked beneath their feet. The spirit of the Black River had come to collect its debt. Ki Renga shouted one final incantation, thrusting his staff into the ground, but the smoke suddenly stopped swirling. The torches went out. The circle disappeared. "No," Ki Renga whispered. The ritual failed. Pak Dharma ran forward, grabbing Samala by the arm. She turned her head toward him slowly, her gaze distant. "It's time." Her voice wasn't hers. It was layered with something older. Something not human. Booty screamed and reached for Kamala, who now stood knee-deep in the river, her hands open toward the sky. "Come back," she sobbed. "Please." But her body felt heavy, too heavy to move, as if invisible hands held her back. Pak Dharma tried to step forward, but his legs refused. His feet were rooted, as though the earth itself had betrayed him. And then, the girls began to walk deeper into the river. "Samala! Kamala!" Booty cried out in agony, her voice cracking. "Please don't go." But the twins didn't turn around. They continued, step by step, until the water reached their chests. Then their eyes, once empty, briefly flickered with recognition. A single tear rolled down Kamala's cheek. "We love you, Mama." "Papa," she whispered. Then the river roared one last time. A monstrous, deafening surge, and the girls disappeared beneath the surface, swallowed whole by the water. And suddenly, silence. The water stilled. The wind stopped. Only the faint echo of their names remained, lost in the hush of the forest. Pak Dharma and Booty fell to their knees, staring blankly at the river. Their daughters were gone. Forever. No screams. No ripples. No goodbye. Just silence. The villagers came later, holding torches, too afraid to speak. They found Pak Dharma and Booty still sitting at the river's edge, unmoving as if time had stopped for them. Ki Renga approached, face pale. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "The curse was too deep. Too old. I tried." Pak Dharma didn't respond. Booty just looked at the river, eyes hollow. The girls were not just taken. They were claimed. In the days that followed, the story spread beyond Karang Wulam. Whispers of the cursed river, of the twins born from a dark pact, of a ritual that failed, all passed from village to village. The Black River became a place of dread. No one went near it. Those who tried never returned. Even the birds stopped flying over it. The trees closest to its edge began to rot. The land knew what had happened, and it remembered. Booty and Pak Dharma remained in the village, broken. They refused to leave, refused to speak. Every day, they walked to the river's edge and sat quietly, waiting, hoping, mourning. One morning, weeks later, a child claimed she saw two girls standing in the water, their backs turned, hair drifting like ink in the current. When she blinked, they were gone. And that's how the legend grew. They say on certain nights, when the mist is heavy and the moon is full, If you listen closely, you'll hear faint laughter near the riverbank. Some say Samala and Kamala still linger, spirits now neither alive nor dead. Others say they became part of the river itself, its guardians, its curse. Whatever the truth, one thing is certain. The river always remembers. And no one in Karang Wulang ever asks the spirits for favors again. Because every wish has a price. And the Black River always comes to collect.